Tonight on InnerSpace.
He gets his stomach blown open by a laser beam. You're like, really?
Damian Kindler on the blood and guts of tonight's Sanctuary. Welcome to InnerSpace, everyone. Thanks for joining us on this eve before the big long weekend. We're talking all about Sanctuary tonight, and if you're like AJ and I, you were thrilled to see that Nikola Tesla is back, baby.
I was thrilled. Everyone loves Sanctuary's resident vampire, and I can call him that because he is a vampire once again. You could even say he's been revamped.
I believe they did say that. Yes. Later in the show, we'll talk all about Tesla's revamping, and we'll even hear from Sanctuary creator Damian Kindler on why it was imperative that Nikola become, once again, a bloodsucker. But first, Tesla wasn't the only one put in the spotlight tonight. Kate also had to take a stand, and it all came to a head in this scene.
You know what? You're crazy. Coming out here alone.
I'm not alone. A year ago, you could have pulled that trigger. Nobody would have cared. But I'm with the Sanctuary now. Think about that combination. Their toys, my attitude. And you do not want to piss us off any more than you already have. My advice? Cash in your chips while you still can. Because next time, you're not going to know what hit you.
Kate, tough talk there, eh?
Yeah.
She's so badass. And here's the thing, loved her in this episode. I appreciate that she's trying to exorcise the demons from her shady, illegal past by doing a very good, noble deed in this episode. But by talking that hubristically and toughly, is she putting the Sanctuary team in danger? I mean, she's going like, come on, to a criminal organization. That organization could set a trap for the Sanctuary team, targeting Kate, and she could put everyone in danger.
A small criminal organization. I suppose there is some risk involved, but ultimately I think this is something that Kate had to do to eliminate any doubt that the rest of the Sanctuary team had about her being fully on board with the Sanctuary.
Do you feel like there was that doubt? I don't know if there was that doubt.
I think so, because as a viewer, I had that doubt when she went off on her own at the beginning. I thought, oh no, she's going back to the dark side here.
I did too, and Bigfoot thought so.
Yeah, and she was being a bit reckless when she was, you know, consumed by the parasite suit in Hero 2, so I think we've seen this, you know, questioning Kate's allegiance a little bit, and now I think we all know she's fully on board with the Sanctuary, and it's a minor risk to talk a big talk against a small criminal organization. No big deal.
Listen, she was doing it for good, but she was doing it in a way that it gave you a little window. Hey, maybe this is what she was like back in the day, this hubristic kind of rough personality. You can't always be like that if you're working with a big team like the Sanctuary.
But they're great to have around. They're very entertaining.
Well, they are entertaining. You know who else is? Nikola Tesla. He's finally resurfaced. Very happy about that. Here's Damian Kindler explaining why his return was so important.
Hi.
Hi.
I knew that I wanted the show to do a Tesla Gets Revamped episode. And because it's boring to have him just be Magneto. And I wanted him to be miserable being Magneto. And because he's a giant roaring snob and he wants back into the club, right? So that's what that episode really was about. It was servicing his character and then really servicing the issue of vampires, because we discovered that, you know, vampires had these mortal enemies who were these super advanced humans who went into Hollow Earth and had an advanced society and cut themselves off from the savage, boring humans on the surface. And they were instrumental in helping defeat the vampires. So if we're going to meet these advanced humans, we better go also back and revisit their enemies, the vampires, who were this other race of super advanced beings who warred with the humans sent, you know, millennia ago.
A really great episode, as Damian was saying, full of new information, and it's nice to see Tesla back with his vampire powers, maintaining his electromagnetism powers.
This is huge. I mean, Tesla was already a force to be reckoned with back in the day as a regular vampire, but now he's Magneto and Vamp Man.
And it was great to see him ultimately saving Magnus from, of course, Athena, whereas at the beginning of the episode, it was Magnus trying to save Tesla. So it was nice that they contrasted one another. So let's talk about Athena. Could we potentially see
Easy
her?
on the eyes.
Oh, yes.
Sorry, I have to mention it.
No, I don't mind. But will we ever see her again?
Well, that explosion looked pretty formidable, but, you know, anytime to me in sci-fi and genre, it was like a high, wide shot of an explosion. I don't think that is the last we've seen of her or her hordes, and I would argue that they're leading up to the season finale. We got a lot of episodes to go, but I bet you it's going to come down to the Vamps and the Praxians, maybe with Team Sanctuary, but here's the question. I talked about Kate being reckless. Was Magnus reckless? She told Athena that the Praxians went down into Hollow Earth, and I know she just was throwing them off the scent.
Right.
And she always intended to blow up Athena, but was that reckless? Because now if Athena did survive, she knows where her adversaries are.
Ooh, then yes. But I think that Magnus, you know, she was caught between a rock and a hard place, quite literally down there in that rocky terrain. So I think she had limited, you know, options, so she had to do what she had to do in order to get out of there. I think Athena probably did die, but if there is that, you know, dormant army of vampires out there and they somehow get resuscitated, it could be what you're saying, you know, Proxians versus vampires again.
And if you're a race,
Proxians, I should say.
if you're a race that was at war for what sounded like a long time, and then you finally recede and have this sanctuary underground, if you will, you'd probably be pretty protective of the secrecy of your location.
This is very true.
And Magnus has compromised that.
Yep. Well, we are once again turning to Damian Kindler because there was so much more about Tesla in this episode that just needed to happen.
Holy mother.
You need to stay awake.
There are other ways of getting my attention. I never knew you could be so cruel.
The great thing about Awakening is that it's not just Tesla kind of vamping and vamping. He actually is in serious trouble for the first half of that story. I wanted him to be in legitimate peril, and he gets his stomach blown open by a laser beam, and you're like, oh my God, that's really? And I think that helps keep the character on balance, that he's not just a smarmy genius. He's also frail and, you know, mortal and, you know, capable of facing his own demise with kind of some dignity. And then also being kind of a smarmy genius later when things change.
We mustn't forget our most important achievement of the day. My resurrection.
Oh, here we go.
I love the idea of him creating this internal force field to protect his embattled organs. And I also love the idea that Nicola could gain more perspective as a result of his near-death experience, but I hope he never loses that smarmy geniusness.
I don't think there's anything that could take that away from him.
I hope not.
And last week's episode had Erica taken away from Henry. Lily posted about it online and said, too bad Erica left, but now Henry's free to be with Kate. Can't forget the kiss between them in Hero 2. That has to mean something, right? And I agree with AJ's theory about Abby. While I love her, it would certainly make things more interesting for the group. This is, of course, in reference to my theory that Abby is hiding something big. She maybe isn't who she says she is.
I think you said she was some sort of malevolent double agent or something.
Maybe I went that far, but
well,
I don't know if that's the case.
People are already agreeing with you. It's
yeah, so it's a good theory. So if you want to agree with me as well, you can at spacecast.com. Leave a comment on our blog.
Or drop us a tweet, twitter.com/spacechannel.
Post on our Facebook fan page.
Or old-fashioned email, InnerSpace@spacecast.com. And we'll continue the conversation with InnerSpace Raw up at spacecast.com as well.
And don't forget that tonight's episode of Sanctuary will be there tomorrow, so you can watch it all again.
Abby's good.
Yeah. No.